I'm gonna show you a couple things. But Monday, or no, Tuesday we'll kind of go over some stuff in here. I've got a website because the school makes me. But I do use it for good. I found some ways I need to use it for good. If you go to the school deal, and then I guess you can go to either high school or just this staff thing and click on that. And then you go find, I'm at the bottom because I'm in high school. She talks to me. Look at that. She's old too.
That's when she had.
What's that?
Is her hair up?
Yes.
Okay, I was about to say, when did she have short hair?
I love her. She was bald, I really like long curly hair. Look at that. I really like long, thick, curly, long hair. I used to have long. I'll show you a couple pictures today. But you go to me, and then you can go to website. I got all these little things here. Alright? We're going to live today. All these things here are the videos we're going to watch. And you can push on one and it takes you right to it. Yeah, I did that on my own. I figured it out. I just went around and started pushing buttons and figured out how to kind of do that. We're just going to do two today. If you ever want to show somebody, or if you want to look at them, or if you don't care, I'll show you this. Info and useful stuff. This goes, remember I told you I put the videos on the deal? If you go to useful stuff, there's the thing, it takes you to where all the little videos are. So, in case you need that. Also have the Packers schedule to help you out, and the Packers history, if you ever want to read up on that. What we were going to do, I'm going to read you something first. 85 times he's pushed his disabled son Rick 26.2 miles in marathons. 8 times he's not only pushed him 26.2 miles in a wheelchair, but also towed him 2.4 miles in a boat while swimming and pedaled him 112 miles in a seat on the handlebars all the same day. His dad and son. His son's in a wheelchair. He's not crippled, but he's going to tell you the story, but he can't function. So his dad pushes him. And they do Ironmans, where they swim in the ocean 2.5 miles.
I've heard of this.
You seen this?
Yeah.
Then they get out of the boat. He has to carry him to the bike. They ride a bike 112 miles, and then they run a marathon. That's their day. What's that? Who's going to tell you? Story time. Dick's also pulled him cross-country skiing, taking him on his back mountain climbing, and once hauled him across the U.S. on a bike. Makes taking your kid bowling look a little lame. And what's Rick done for his dad? Not much except save his life. The story began in Winchester, Massachusetts 43 years ago. Now this story is like from 2006 or 7, so it's old. He was born in the early 60s. Rick was strangled by the umbilical cord during birth, leaving him brain damaged and unable to control his limbs. He'll be a vegetable the rest of his life, Dick says doctors told him and his wife Judy. When Rick was 9 months old, they said, put him in an institution. As you look back in history, be very careful judging other people's actions in different times. If I lived in Alabama in the 1800s, or in the 1930s, or any time, I wouldn't have said anything. I wouldn't have done anything. I don't know that I wouldn't have owned slaves either. Why? I wouldn't want my throat cut. I wouldn't want to get beat up. I would want a job. I would self-preservation. So even if, just be careful going back and judging other people's actions and stuff in other times. When I had 3 kids, Scaredest I was when Colt was born and when Titan was born. I was scared for Titan because Mama was old. And more weird stuff can happen when you're old. So I was scared for Colt because this is the wrong way of thinking. I would pray every day, God, I have been and am such a piece of garbage. Don't take it on him. I was so scared that we were going to be the 70-year-old parents with a 45-year-old kid that can't take care of themselves. And that's probably not right, but I was worried about that. I wasn't worried about Pacer because she'd already been through, but then Mama didn't want to have she wanted to try to do it on her own, and they gave her this medicine. And as soon as she took it, she went in, and she started throwing up. And then she was having contractions. And then they decided to do the epidural. They put the needle in the spinal cord, and there is a chance of getting paralyzed when they do that. So she's on her side, throwing up. I'm holding the bucket. She's throwing up, she's having a contraction, and they're doing the epidural. And I just got down her face and I just screamed. I don't scream, I just yelled. I said, "You are not going to move. Sit still. I am not going to take care of a baby and I'm on a wheelchair. Sit still." And I was just, I was worried then. And I didn't say it like that. I guess I'm over it, but I was, you're not going to move. What was that? Oh. So they said, put him in the institution. The Hoyts weren't buying it. They noticed the way Rick's eyes followed them around the room. When Rick was 11, they took him to the engineering department at Tufts University and asked if there was anything to help the boy communicate. "No way," Dick said. Dick was told, "There's nothing going on in his brain." "Tell him a joke," Dick said. They did, and Rick laughed. Turns out a lot was going on in his brain. Now, this is the early 70s, and so they didn't have computers and technology like today. Rigged up with a computer that allowed him to control the cursor by touching a switch with the side of his head, Rick was finally able to communicate. And you'll see it on this video. It's a little. He can't control his arms. He can't move his legs, but he can move his head. And he would tap on this thing, and he could type. He got to learn how to type. What do you think the first words he typed out? He'd never spoken or communicated ever in his life. What do you think he would say? 12 years old, 11, 12 years old. "Hi, Mom, thank you, I love you," something like that maybe. He typed, "Go Bruins," because the Boston Bruins were in the Stanley Cup playoffs that year. After a high school classmate was paralyzed in an accident and school organized a charity run for him, Rick typed out, "Dad, I want to do that." How was Dick, a self-described porker who'd never run more than a mile at a time, going to push his son 5 miles? Still, he tried. Then it was me who was handicapped, he said. I was sore for 2 weeks. Now that was with a hospital wheelchair, not a athletic, really movable wheelchair. That day changed Rick's life. "Dad," he typed, "when we were running, it felt like I wasn't disabled anymore." That's what I did. And that sentence changed Dick's life. He became obsessed with giving Rick that feeling as often as he could. He got into such good shape that him and Rick were ready to try the 1979 Boston Marathon. No way, they were told by race officials. They weren't a single runner, and they weren't quite a wheelchair competitor. For a few years, Dick and Rick just joined the massive field and ran anyway. Then they found a way to get in the race officially. In 1983, they ran another marathon so fast, they made the qualifying time for the Boston Marathon the following year. Then somebody said, "Why not try a triathlon?" How's a guy who never learned how to swim and hadn't ridden a bike since he was 6 going to haul his 110-pound kid through a triathlon? Still, he tried. Now they've done 212 triathlons, including 4 grueling 15-hour Ironmans in Hawaii. "Hey, Dick, why don't you see how you could do it on his own?" "No way," he said. What's the only reason he can do this? The sun. That's the motivation. So if the sun's not there, there's no reason to do it. So he's never done it by himself. The world record marathon is 2 hours and 4 minutes, I think. 2 hours and 5 minutes, 4 minutes. And that's by some skinny guy that runs real fast, all right? Little Christy has run 2 marathons. The first one she did, I drove her up and right before we both got out and I grabbed her shoulders and I said, "You are not going to walk. There is no walking today." You were gonna run the whole thing. Yes, I am. I'm gonna run the whole thing. And she did it in under 5 hours. That was her goal. Under 5 hours, not walking. So the world record's 2 hours for 5 minutes. Her record is under 5 hours. What do you think they've done to it? What do you think their record is?
4 hours, 3 hours.
2 hours and 40 minutes.
They were booking it.
Yes. And that's a guy push, and you'll see in the video, I've been watching this video for 15, 20 years. I coach track, coach athletics, and I've always talked about, when I emphasize the arms. Your thumbs go through your hips, get your arms bent, you're driving, because you gotta drive your arms to drive the legs. He doesn't use his arms, because he's got his arms on the wheelchair. So he runs with no arm movement. That's 10 times harder than running like this. You just run with no, try running sometime without using your arms. Try pushing something while you're running. In 1990, let's see, in 2003, they were 5,000 out of 20,000 people that run it. So they were in the top 4 of all the runners. No question about it, Rick Tops. My dad is father of the century. But Dick got something else out of all this too. 2 years ago, he had a mild heart attack during a race. Doctors found one of his arteries was 95% clogged. If you hadn't been in such great shape, the doctor said, you probably died 15 years ago. So in a way, Dick and Rick saved each other's life. Not in a way, they both saved each other's life. Rick, who has his own apartment, he's a college graduate. The doctor said put him in an institution because there's nothing going on. He's a college graduate. He has his own place. He does have health care, a nurse to help with stuff. He has a job. He helps develop software for people who can't communicate. So he develops ways for them to communicate. Dick and Rick get together as much as they can. They give speeches around the country and compete in some back-breaking race every weekend, including Father's Day. That night, Rick will buy his dad dinner, but the thing he really wants to give him is a gift he can never buy. The thing I most like, he types, is that my dad sits in the chair and I push him once.
This is Rachel. Rachel is a science teacher and she is fed up. This is Ryan. Ryan is also a science teacher.
He's not from Texas. How do you know he's not from Texas? He has a hat on in the building. Texans don't wear hats in the building. A Texan takes their hat off in the building. People from Oklahoma will have in the building, but Texans will take their hat off in the building.
Surrounded by your
mistake that he was doing? No. Do you think the parents, was their life harder or easier because of him? Harder. Way harder. You think they would trade? No. Not at all. I wouldn't take any amount of money to go back and make Cold Story the movie that I had for him. I wouldn't trade his life for whatever. Heisman Trophy, state championship. I wouldn't want any of that. I want what his life turned out perfect. I don't want to go back and redo it the way I wanted it to. It turned out perfectly. They wouldn't go back and switch it if they could. Do you think they impact people's lives? Do you think they affect people? Yeah. I know they do. They affect mine. This is Josiah. I don't think any of y'all have ever seen Josiah. All I have to do is sit and hold the place for message say, today's Josiah Day, and maybe someday. They like it.
That's nice.
An eternal witness. It is our constant gauge and final judge, our common shadow, and eternal witness. Time. But there are some places, like the dirt of a diamond, even time can't touch. And some lives, even the smallest ones, it can't truly measure. 6-year-old Josiah Vieira plays against time in everything he does. Perhaps that's why he loves baseball, a game measured in innings, not minutes.
Baseball makes me happy. I like real baseball because I never won't waste.
My goal has always been in everything that he's ever done is, for however long Josiah is with us, let him experience life. Let him be a kid.
But how Josiah made it to the baseball field in Higgins, Pennsylvania, and what happened after he got there, is a story with a trail more difficult than any trip around the bases. May 25th, 2004, Josiah came into the world as a 5.5-pound healthy baby boy. But in the next 6 months, he gained just 2 more pounds. And doctors didn't know why.
They're all scratching their heads saying, why can't we feed Josiah? Why is he not healing properly?
Jennifer, a single parent, spent most of Josiah's first year beside him at the hospital. On his first birthday, doctors finally had a definitive diagnosis.
The doctor came in and was just like, well, I think that your son has Hutchinson-Gilford-Progeria syndrome. And so I was like, okay.
Progeria is a genetic disease which causes accelerated aging in children. Its name, from the Greek, means prematurely old. It is incurable and among the rarest diseases on earth.
The chance of being born with progeria is about 1 in 4 million. So it's amazingly rare. Right now there's about 13 kids in the United States, 54 kids worldwide.
How old is his body?
It's hard to tell. About 1 year was equal to about 10 years. Josiah is looking at probably being between an average 60 to 70-year-old.
Doctors told Josiah's mother, with the disease, his life expectancy was between 8 and 13 years.
I never questioned why me or anything like that, but I kind of questioned almost to the point of why Josiah.
What do you mean?
it's hard to explain being a mom or a parent and knowing that potentially you're going to outlive your child.
By the time Josiah was 16 months old, his health was failing for other reasons. By September 2005, fighting chronic infection, a collapsed lung, pneumonia, and his continued inability to gain weight, he was living on a ventilator with little hope of ever recovering.
Josiah was as sick as you could get. He couldn't have gotten any sicker.
He was so bad and so malnourished and so, I don't know how to put it. Just, you see him there and just on life support. Yeah.
Josiah had fought a good fight at that point in time. And I stood over on him and I said, if you can't fight anymore, buddy, that's okay. We had to make a tough decision that we take him off the ventilator. They put him in my lap and they slowly shut the machine off.
What did you expect to happen?
I expected Josiah to die.
What happened in the morning?
The doctors came in and to their surprise, he was still alive.
That moment said I knew he wasn't going anywhere. I could feel it in my heart that this guy's not done yet. There's a purpose for him.
Josiah survived, defying any doctor's explanation, but his challenges persisted. Since he was a year and a half old, hospital trips have been almost weekly. What happens when you go to the hospital?
It makes me mad.
It makes you mad. Why?
Because it hurts. And it hurts.
Where does it hurt?
In here. In the legs.
In your legs.
Mm-hmm.
Where else does it hurt?
In the arms.
In your arms.
Yeah.
The pain, however constant, has never interrupted his greatest passion, baseball.
Teachers, you may now post attendance.
That's cool.
Thank you.
That's gone. He is 27 inches tall, just 2 inches taller.
Y'all were supposed to stop me, remember?
We didn't know what you were doing.
Oh, you gotta yell at me, don't take it all. Crap, did I do it? Oh my gosh, this is so stupid. Did I? Or maybe I didn't.
Oh, yeah.
I'm in trouble now, that's awesome. Right. First thing, tell me don't take it.
More than the length of his back,
Yeah.
and weighs 15 and a half pounds. But his size never limits his desire to play or his joy in the game.
When he wakes up, he's like, Nana, play baseball with me. Mom, play baseball with me. Sister, play baseball with me. He just likes to play baseball all day.
I remember distinctly one day him saying, my only dream is to play baseball.
This spring, Josiah presented his dream to play on a team to the town Little League.
What did you tell Coach the first time you met him about playing baseball?
I want to play baseball.
He came over, looked straight up at me, and he asked me, Coach, can I play? What are we gonna say to a little kid like that?
May 5th, Josiah stepped to the plate to play one game with the Tri-Valley White Sox.
He hit the ball. Didn't go far, 5-6 feet. And he take off for first base. Hands are falling down, he's trying to run, and his shirt and hat's bouncing around. He's fast as he can go with his little arms going, trying to get to first base. He makes it to first base, he turns around and looks at the coach and goes, yeah, like that, you know. He's just in heaven.
I knew at that time his dream had come true, and I knew probably that that would be his first and his last game, because at the time it was a once and done deal.
The game is over. Josiah took his hat and pulled it down over his face. And all he seen was 2 tears running down the side of his nose. I went over to him and I said, what's wrong? He said, I want it to be over.
In the days following the game, Josiah suffered a series of mini strokes and was taken to the hospital, at one point temporarily unable to move or speak.
I thought that I lost a part of him that day because he couldn't talk. He tried to and he'd cry. We've been told it could take his speech, could take his movement. We don't know. Only God knows what will happen next.
This year, doctors told Josiah's family he has even less time. His body is aging at a faster pace than other progeria children.
He knows about the disease, but I don't think he really has comprehended that eventually he's going to die. Already he said to me, what does heaven look like? You know, what does heaven look like? And then I have to answer him. And then he seems happy about it when we tell him.
What is heaven?
That's earth. Earth.
Heaven. What do you think heaven looks like?
Jesus.
Josiah was quick to recover, and 3 weeks later rejoined his team for their next 2 games. In the last week of May and the first week of June, he was back on the field with the White Sox.
There you go! Run! Good job!
By the day of the White Sox final game, news of Josiah's role on the team and his love for baseball had spread beyond Higgins and throughout the Tri-Valley.
How many people came to that last game?
Lots of people.
Lots. Hundreds?
Yes.
June 18th, nearly 1,000 people came to watch Josiah play. Parents brought their children. Coaches brought their teams. Children brought their gloves. All of them to watch or play with Josiah.
They know his condition and they think, them little legs he has, boy, can they run to base. You know, I think that's what really touched the people, that even though he has this sickness, he gave it his all.
Everybody crank it up for Josiah, it's his last shot for the night. He loves the game for the game. Not win or lose. It's just love, it's just to swing the bat, hit the ball, and run the base.
I don't know what Josiah thought when they all started to chant his name when he was on the field. You can see him smile. He just soaked it all in.
It would be easy to say the scene was timeless, but really, it wasn't. It was Josiah's time.
I've had lots of people come to me since then. Adults, little kids, teenagers who play softball and baseball and say that he's their hero because he didn't let his condition stop him. He was placed here to touch people's lives.
How has he touched yours?
He's my son.
Could you look at him and not smile? He's, please talk to him. Is he a mistake? No. Is he affecting other people? Life has nothing to do with you. It's not about what life can give you or what you can get out of life. If you think about yourself long enough, what happens? If you think about you and your condition and what you're in and what's going on, eventually what's going to happen? How you going to feel? Ticked, sad, disappointed. Our life is here to help other people's lives. That's what your purpose is, to help other people. My purpose is to help other people. When you do that, what happens to you? When you do something for somebody else, what happens to you? You feel good. You can't help somebody and not feel good. And if you sit and focus on yourself, you get miserable. That's what's wrong with this world. Everybody's 100% focused on themselves and nobody's content, nobody's happy, everybody's frustrated and angry because it's all about me. If you just smile, wave, hold the door open, help somebody pick something up, it doesn't take much, and you help other people and you make their day better. Does that make sense? You ever had, I want to say it like this, because have you ever had to go sing at the old folks' home? How do you feel before you go? I always like, oh, I hope it snows. I don't want to go. I don't want to go. And then when we leave, I feel good. I was happy. But before I was like, I don't want this. But if you can look for ways to help other people, it makes your life better. That's where you get contentment. All right. Tomorrow, or not tomorrow, Monday we'll watch some more videos.